All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome to the April 2022 edition of our Collaboration Cafe, which is sponsored by the Midwest Big Data Innovation Hub with support from NSF. I'm John MacMullen. I'm the Executive Director of the Hub, and I'm very happy to see you all joining today. Also happy to see Angie Raymond from Indiana University, who is our new theme lead for this Smart and Resilient Communities space on the call with us as well. Thanks for being here. And we also have a few prior awardees of the NSF Smart and Connected Communities program joining us today as well. Thank you for being here. So I have a few slides to introduce this webinar series and the NSF program that we'll look at today. I'm going to go through those very quickly so that we have time to have a good discussion today. So I'm going to put the link to our slides for today into the chat for you. Feel free to take a look at that and refer back to that if you need to as we get into our discussion today. So for those of you who are joining for the first time or may not be familiar with what we do, we are part of a national network of 4 big data innovation hubs sponsored by NSF since 2015. And we are focused on a 12-state region here in the Midwest, but really, again, are part of that national footprint that we have across the country and able to leverage those other hubs for national activities, all really focused on building partnerships and collaborations in the data science area, very, very broadly construed. In the Midwest, we have several themes and priority areas that we are focused on. These are driven by community interests across the region. Today in particular, we're focused on the smart and resilient communities space, but you can see that we range across a number of domains and theme areas with a strong emphasis on data science education, workforce development, and cyber infrastructure across all of those theme areas. Now that we have been around for a while, we're looking for connections across these theme areas. And really the resilient community space is a good umbrella for looking at some of those themes and challenges and opportunities that cut across those priority areas. And so it's great to see folks on the call today who are coming from a number of those backgrounds and interested in looking across those boundaries with us today. All right, so I'm going to skip through this section pretty quickly. It is in the slides that I have shared in the chat with you. This is an ongoing series that we hold every month, typically focused on a particular funding agency solicitation. We look at NSF programs quite a bit, but also NIH and USDA and others. So we encourage you to come back anytime that we have a topic that you are interested in, and you can see those on our website and check out the recordings from prior sessions as well. Beyond the sort of real-time webinar that we have today and the recordings that we have, we also do have a Slack community and some shared documents that are available for you as well. I will put the shared notes document in the chat for you. For those who are interested in following up on discussions that we have today, feel free to drop your contact information in that document and any particular topics that you're interested in collaborating on, and that can serve as a way for us to follow up with you and other folks on the call to do some outreach as well. The Hub is a neutral regional organization, but we do collaborate with a variety of partners on proposals, sometimes in very straightforward collaborations around amplifying activities that you all are engaged in. And so unfunded collaborations like that, we are very open to. We are also willing to partner in more depth on other projects as well. So if you have interest in working with the hub in different ways, feel free to reach out to us and have that discussion as well. So let's get right into our discussion today about the NSF Smart and Connected Communities program. I'm assuming that if you're on the call live here with us, that you have some interest in this program and you may have looked at the solicitation or at least some of the context there. So we won't go into all the details. Definitely encourage you to read the full solicitation if you're interested in proposing to the program, because there is a lot of guidance provided by NSF around what exactly they're looking for these proposals. And that, if you're a proposer, that's extremely helpful to have that level of detail. But it is a lot to read in this particular solicitation, the details about that program. So we'll just start with some context about this being very much focused on the underlying science, engineering, and technology dimensions of this work. So this is NSF rather than a different agency that may be more focused on the community dimensions. We'll talk about what the differences are that NSF sees in that regard in a few moments, but it is still NSF, and so they're very focused on the technical and underlying research elements of these activities. The program has two different segments, one that's focused on full research proposals, one that is focused on planning grants. And so you can see that the research grants are 3 to 4 years from $1.5 million up to $2.5 million in funding for those. So those are relatively significant projects. You can think about the kinds of effort and collaborators that you may be able to fund for that size. The planning grants, as we'll talk about, are really designed to help proposers get to that level of proposing a full integrative track proposal after the end of that 1-year planning period. They give us some helpful guidance on their site about how many awards they expect to make for each of the calendar year cycles that they have. This program is no longer time limited. This is open for submissions at any point during the year. That is out through, I believe, April of 2024. So we have a couple of years left before they make revisions to this or do away with this program. And so the timing is wide open for folks to think about what's a good fit for a proposal in this space, and you don't have to be concerned about a due date for that coming up soon. There are no letter of intent or pre-proposal items for this program, and so again, you're free to scope this in whatever way makes sense for you, but this is a multi-directorate competition, and so there's a number of different divisions and directorates in NSF that are interested in proposals in this space. And so it's often a good idea to reach out to a program officer in the division that you think is most aligned with your research area, get a little bit of feedback about whether your concept is a good fit for that particular part of the foundation. And then they do have some restrictions about how many proposals you can be on as a PI, co-PI, or senior personnel. So at this point, as a no deadline program, during a 12-month period, you can be on 2 proposals maximum as one of those types of participants. So you could be a PI on 2, you could be a PI on 1, senior personnel on another. There's just a total limit of 2 that you can be on during that 12-month period. All right, so there's a lot of language in the solicitation about this program, but pulling out a couple of key terms here I think is important to understand what they're talking about in terms of the scope of projects here. So in terms of communities, they are defining those very strictly as geographically delineated areas. So this is not a community of practice or a community of researchers in a particular domain, for example. This is very much focused on places in the world and scoping that to particular kinds of organizations within that geographic space. NSF is very open to projects in rural spaces, as well as what we might classically think of as a smart cities concept, which is large metropolitan areas. There's plenty of applications in the rural area context as well, and they're quite open to seeing proposals from EPSCoR states in particular, for example. So thinking about the scope of the community that you're interested in, and then thinking about how that community relates to the underlying research that you want to do around technology and science and engineering, and how that may relate to the context of that environment. So the natural environment, the built environment in that community of interest. They also give you some good guidance about who the stakeholders within that community are in relation to this program. So looking at this from the group level and the organization level down to individual residents as participants. So quite a range of possible partners for proposers in a particular community. They do talk about partnerships with community organizations as being extremely important to this program. And so rather than viewing the people in the community as research subjects, you should really view them as partners and collaborators, equal partners in the endeavor rather than research subjects. That is something that they have called out, I believe in the solicitation, but definitely in the webinar for this program as well. So it would be good when we get into the discussion later to hear from some of you, the prior awardees on the call, about what your community partner relationships look like, who you decided to partner with, and why that was important for your project. This is the infamous NSF Flower Diagram from their webinar that just gives a little more context about the space that they are looking for proposers to address here. So the research areas that are relevant to NSF are really in the center circle, so the S&CC core center section there. Those are, the NSF program areas and focus areas that they're expecting to see some kind of research and development around in the proposal. The community is surrounding that, but is also linking out to the application areas that are possible in this space as well. And so you can see that is a very wide range of possibilities for applying the underlying research to real world problems in the community and opportunities to make a difference there. And so the synergies between those seem very important to them. So the way that I remember them describing this is that the community engagement ring here is really the mechanism by which the research gets translated into those application areas. So there's some kind of community challenge or need that is driving that research and then applying it into that community. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about the differences between the tracks here. So there's the research, the full research grant track, which really is focused on research rather than application as the core of the work that's being done. So looking at the fundamental technological and social science aspects of this problem. They're giving you some guidance about specifically what they want to see in the proposals. And so you'll see a long list of sections in the solicitation that are for your research plan, for your community engagement plan, the different project management and evaluation elements to the project, and then sustainability. So, you know, assuming that your research is valuable and the community benefits from that, you know, how do you take that forward outside of the timeline of the award and sustain that? And then, of course, the broader impacts discussion that is common to all NSF proposals. You know, how does the work that you're doing really broaden out into the world and have a larger impact down the road? Like a lot of other programs from NSF, there is a required annual PI meeting so that you can meet with other awardees in this program and, you know, share experiences, share the impact that you're having. And so budgeting for that is important. The sort of main difference between these two tracks is that the planning grants are going to stop at the research and community engagement design, whereas the full program proposals will include those other management and evaluation sustainability kinds of components to them. So really the only difference in the two tracks of the integrative program is the timeline in the budget. Right, if you think this is a smaller scale project that only needs to go for 3 years, then the track 2 version of this is the one to choose. Where if you have a longer term time frame or you need a larger budget, the track 1 is the one that gives you that flexibility. Planning grants are much more time limited. They're 1 year and they're, like I said, focused on the research and the community engagement piece. So really building the plan for those two dimensions right up front and making sure that that is going to be important for the full proposal. Much smaller project description for that. So you have to be very concise and very clear in what you're trying to do for that particular proposal. All right, as I said, we have lots of good guidance in the solicitation about how NSF is reviewing these. This is a cross-directorate program, as I mentioned, and so different parts of NSF may have different interests and different ways of viewing the proposal. So again, reaching out to a program officer is a good idea. The standard merit review principles and criteria apply here, but there are a couple of additional criteria for this program in particular. And again, broken down by which track you're in. And so looking specifically at those elements that I talked about within the project description, those are really what the reviewers are focused on for the details of this proposal. So definitely, again, read the solicitation in detail if you're proposing to this. I would suggest checking out the webinar recording that they had for this program last month. It's about an hour and a half long, so you need to budget some time for that. But they do get into Q&A and some more detail about the program that I think is helpful. It's not anything that is not in the solicitation, but it gives you a little more context, a little more color from the program directors on that call that may be helpful for you. All right, so that is the wrap up that I have for you of this program. Any questions, comments at this point before we turn off the recording and move into our discussion session here. Any things you'd like to clarify, or from previous awardees, anything you'd like to mention for folks who are watching this? All right, so at this point then we'll move into our group discussion here in the live session. For those who are watching the recording, we hope that you come back and join us in the May for the May session on May 19th. This will be focused on a joint solicitation between NSF and NIH on smart health and data science. But if you're watching the recording, thanks for tuning in today, and we hope to see you on a future call. And if you join, you can participate in the live discussion that we have. So we'll see you then, hopefully.